Adele, pleasure to have you here on the show. Welcome to the arena, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll just start right off with, you have a saying called buy back yourself or buy yourself back.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the best things I've heard in a while. Can you give the audience a little more insight? What does it mean to buy yourself?
Sure. So Buy Yourself is my company that I started after lifelong of learnings and trial and errors and literally going into myself and understand, what is it that I'm doing here and why am I here and why, how do I feel ultimate happiness?
Right.
And I realized pretty early that I was so disconnected to myself and working in sales and realizing that, you can't sell the product, you can't sell the company, you can't sell yourself if you haven't bought all those things yourself, right?
Right.
So that was the beginning of my company, Buy Yourself, which literally is you can't sell anything to anyone before you buy yourself. Whether it's selling yourself in an interview, whether it's selling your product to a customer, like there's nothing you can sell if you don't believe in that yourself. And it starts with you.
And what does it mean to buy yourself? Like, how do you know that I've fully bought myself?
Yeah, that's literally the magic pill. So going back and asking yourself, like, how are you living your life today? And are you living your life based on your stories, based on your beliefs, based on what you want to do, based on your own, like what you've created in this world? Or have you taken on so many layers of other people's stories and beliefs and limitations and even dreams and wishes that you don't even know who you are?
Right.
So buying yourself is not like finding yourself. It's literally going back to yourself.
Right.
And literally say, this is me. And I truly believe and literally operate from everything from what I am, what I believe, from my stories. And those are totally up to you to create.
Right.
No one can tell you who you are besides you.
Why do you find that most people have a very hard time actually buying themselves?
There's so many, like, if you look at someone that's 30 years old, so from the moment you're born till you're 30, like you're literally being fed with informations and stories, and you're sitting in conversations. You pick up how people answer, you pick up how people react, you pick up how people behave in different situations. And if you're not aware and if you're not conscious, you just pick up all that and make them your own stories and behaviors and actions.
Right.
And so many people don't even stop to ask, what do I want?
Right.
Who am I?
Yeah.
So they're not even aware that they haven't bought themselves.
Right.
Many people have this feeling inside of them, anxiety, depression, thoughts that, life must be more than this, or I have all, but I'm still not happy.
Right.
But then to take the time to actually sit down with yourself or with a mentor or with a coach, so many people don't even go that far.
No, I've come across many friends, as you're on this journey, you have friends who you might have grown up with very closely, right? And then you start off going on your own path and you want to bring your friends with you. But it's hard because a lot of them aren't willing to let go of the dreams of other people around them. And one of the closest for me was some of the people in my own family, which is always the hardest. And I always would tell them, look, man, they always ask me, how do you do it? How do you leave your parents? You never know how much time they have left. And this is how I would explain it. I'm just like, look, it's inevitable that there's a certain amount of time left with my parents.
Right.
That's inevitable. It could be tomorrow, it could be 10 years from now. The thing is, if I live their dream out now and I stay around their house to please them, when that moment comes that they're no longer here, I'm going to have a much harder time starting my life at that point. Okay. So why don't I just start now and pray and hope and do everything in my power to beat that timeline and then enjoy my time a lot more with them.
100%.
And that really comes down to, like you said, buying yourself, putting yourself first. And so that led you, give the audience a little more backstory. What is it you do now? So
today I work with people in general, high achievers. Most of them are high achievers because what happens is that you're born, you take a university degree or whatever you do, you buy into this life that your parents or your friends or society tells you that you should do. And you do the career or you do everything that you should do according to standards.
Right.
And then you reach a point where you go, I have everything.
Right.
But I'm not happy.
Right.
And there's the saying, so many people die at 30 and get buried at 75 or 80.
Yeah.
And that's like my life mission is to make sure that when people are still living. Let's live a life that's true to yourself.
Right.
So today I help people to understand that concept that, you know what, you can choose your life.
Yeah.
What you have done up until now, like your 30 or 40 years that you have behind you, does not define you, does not mean your future. You don't have to stay that person. You don't have to stay with those beliefs and those stories. You can literally do everything you want, and you can be who you want from today on.
Mm-hmm.
So, because many people think, yeah, because, they've lived so long like this, but they're going to live so long like this.
Right.
Right? So, but why not change it?
Yeah.
If you know you can. So my mission is to make people aware that there is another way of living life.
Yeah.
You can choose your life.
I would say that fear prevents a lot of people from making that decision. Would you agree? So then how do you guys coach these high achievers, these entrepreneurs through breaking through that fear? And like, what's your perspective on fear in general? Like, maybe give us a story about a time where you felt a lot of fear, went through it, and came out on the other end in a better place.
Fear is such a huge topic. And it's one of my favorite topics because, like you said, fear is what stops many people. But I wouldn't say it's the fear itself. It's the meaning and the perception that we have of fear, the meaning that we give fear.
Right.
So I pretty early on knew that there was nothing that can stop me. This is like my superpower. I always knew that if I want to do something, I'll do it.
Right.
So I never understood this concept of fear.
Right.
Because I don't understand.
I don't think a lot of Arabs understand fear.
What are you afraid of? I mean, like you say, I come from a country with war. I see my parents, they literally survived everything.
When you grow up knowing that every day could be your last, there's no more fear.
Exactly. Really. So I was so curious, like, what is it that makes people so afraid? And I understood that it's literally the meaning that they give fear. So when I work with my clients or if with myself, first of all, it's like, but what does fear mean?
Right.
So fear for me is literally just a sign. It's a sign that there's something that you desire that's outside of what you know today, that's outside of what you have today, that's a bit uncomfortable, but it's not scary.
Right.
It's something new. So fear does not mean stop.
Right.
Fear literally means there's something here that you want, but it will take some effort from you. It will take you to step out of your comfort, step out of this safety. And our brain always wants to keep us safe, right? So the fear comes from our brain saying, wait, you're doing something new and I don't know what this is. But it's not real fear. You're not going to die. It's not like back in the days when the signal of fear was literally you going out on the field and getting killed.
Right.
Fear today is just a signal from the brain saying you're doing something different. And you just say, yes, I know. And I will do that because I want what's behind fear.
Right.
I always say to my clients, like, everything you want can be on the other side of fear.
Right. Yeah.
And try to reframe. What does fear mean to you? Listen to it.
Yeah.
Listen to what it's saying. What is fear telling you?
Most people have heard the quote, like, get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And it's right on line with what you said. Like, a lot of people are so comfortable being comfortable that anything outside of this window makes them feel very off. How would you get yourself to the point where you're comfortable, though, being uncomfortable? Like, what are the ways you work with your clients to tackle fear head on?
So again, it's literally the relationship they have to fear or something new or mistakes or uncomfortable. Like, if you want to do something different, it's going to feel different. Right. It's going to require something different. It's going to require change. You can't expect a change and stay the same, right? So
is it like a muscle you think that's trainable?
100%.
Yeah.
Then once you do it and you realize you didn't die, once you do it and you realize that the reward was bigger than maybe the pain or the small kind of fear or maybe even desire that you're feeling. So once you do that, you want more and you want more. It kind of becomes addictive. Yeah. So at some point, my clients tell me, I want to look for the fear. I want to look for the mistakes.
No, I live that way in my personal life. I consider, like, the biggest thing that stops people from achieving something is the inertia to get started.
100%.
Like, getting started is 99% of the battle. And I think when we talk about fear as a trainable muscle, like, it's actually destroying that inertia as fast, like overcoming that as fast as possible. So in the personal life, the way I work that is whenever there's things that make you uncomfortable, I go out and do them. It's like an addictive thing. If I'm hiking and there's a cliff that I want to, like, go and sit on, like, I can't leave without doing it. Yeah. If there's a cold waterfall and no one wants to jump in, like, I can't leave not knowing what it was in that waterfall. Right. When I went paragliding for the first time, like, my heart was beating through my chest. but I can't live my life like not knowing what's on the other side.
Right. Yes.
And people don't understand that. I have so many friends who are like, no, I won't jump off this bridge. I won't go swimming with the sharks or whatever. And it's like every time I do something like that,
Yeah.
the feeling on the other side is something that no one can experience unless you do it.
Right.
And those are the like moments in life that you cherish.
100%
So-
agree. It's beautiful. Like literally, I tell them, go look for fear.
Yeah.
That's the reward.
So the concept obviously of the show is we talk about the arena where every time we wake up, we enter the arena, quote unquote. We battle it out to be the best version of ourselves. I'm sure, just like everyone else, you had your story where at one point you had to go through some battle to figure out that you had to buy yourself.
100%.
So can you share more of that story? Like, when was that moment in your life where you had this realization or this big pivot?
There's actually different stories in my life where I've done that. I've done that several times, when you look at your life and you look at timelines and you look at, different milestones. But I can tell you what the common trait or what happened every time is that there was something that I wanted, whether I've run restaurants and I've become one of the best salespersons in Europe for a certain company. And I've gone from a salesperson to a marketing manager, like each and every time. I said yes long before I even knew how to do it, right? So that's what I encourage people to do. Like if there's something you want, because what people do is like there's something they want and then they tell themselves, but I don't know how to do it, so I'm not gonna do it, and that's what stops them. But instead of going, I don't know how to do it, go, okay, I want to open a restaurant. Have people done this before me? Of course they have. So it's possible, yes. So all I need to do is learn how to run a restaurant.
Right.
So you can't let your past identity or your past self define who you are and what you want to do. So the discussion I always had with myself is literally, who's done this before me? Who can I learn from? And how can I do it? And then stick to the plan.
Yeah.
I think sticking to the plan has been the thing that has made me have the most success. Whether it's, I trusting the process and sticking to the plan during a longer period of time. Because I believe people don't fail, people quit. Right. So if you just do things, the right things, you have a mentor, you have a coach, or you have someone that's done it before you, and you do it during a longer period of time, you learn the skills, you step into that identity of a restaurant owner or a salesperson or a marketing manager.
Right.
And all of a sudden that's part of you again, right?
Yeah.
So you have this new identity that you trained yourself to do.
Yeah.
During a longer period of time.
Did anyone in your family ever have a restaurant?
No.
Or just, I just thought it was funny.
No.
My dad owned a restaurant, and I feel like a lot of Arabs end up having a restaurant, gas station, or a doctor. So
I had just taken my finance degree. I have an MBA in finance,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I want to open a restaurant, and the whole world was against me. It's like,
Yeah.
who goes and take a 5-year degree and then open a restaurant? Well, for me, that was what I like. I was like, I tried banking for 7 months. I hated it,
Right.
but this is what I want.
My
You
dad
know how
did
to-
the same thing. He got a master's in business, MBA, immigrant to the US, and then he went and opened the restaurant. But if you've had parents, I don't know if this is a common thing in Arab parents, but my dad would always say, like, if there's a will, there's a way. And I think that really just like emphasized, it was like the motto for my life growing up.
Yeah.
Because I always wanted to do things that people told me I couldn't.
Yeah.
But it's just because I saw my dad as a prime example of like, he came to the US, $500, 2 suitcases, the
Yeah.
classic immigrant story, worked as a dishwasher, 2-3 jobs, paid his way through school, no debt,
Yeah.
and graduated in 3 years when English wasn't even his first language. And so I know, looking back, I can't imagine how much harder it was in his work, in his role, that any challenge I feel like I go through now, I'm like, I'm so lucky. Like, I can't imagine what it was like. He would tell me stories. He worked in a greenhouse planting trees.
Yeah.
He told me he would plant trees uphill, this is the farm, in the middle of the summer in the heat while he was fasting. And every person who worked on the farm was also an immigrant. So he's like, you have your Asian, your African, your Arab. None of them could speak to each other. They're all eating in front of him. They're all drinking water. He's sweating his ass off 10 hours a day. And I'm just like, man. And I'm sitting here complaining about like how to get this sales system to work,
Yeah.
to get my sales rep to perform better. It's like,
Or someone said no to you
Right.
at your fancy offer that you called from, sitting in Medellin, Colombia in the sun.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like whenever you have a hard time in your life, I think it's important to always look at like who has it worse rather than look at who has it better. And that I think helps you get through this.
Get some perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Perspective, get over your fear, get over whatever it is. So what is it then now that you've realized like is the most important thing when working with high achievers that you have to coach people through over and over to get them to buy themselves?
I think what many people do and have done for their whole life is literally living a life that's not true to themselves.
Right.
So the main thing what I always start with, and I've seen it too many times now when I work with so many people, is that because many people tell me, Adele, I want this. So they look at the end result of what they want. And I always go back and say, yeah, maybe we'll get this, but we need to start at the root. We need to start at like, who are you? How are you living? What's your values? What's your dreams? What's your aspirations? And what's your stories and beliefs? And are they matching how you're living? Right. So what do you want and what's stopping you from getting it? And why is that stopping you? So going back to the root cause of how have you lived your life so far and why don't you have what you want to have? Right. And how can we go back and reprogram or retell our stories or, you can choose what stories you want to believe. So just tell them, this is the story I want to have about X, Y, Z. Right. And that's the story I'm going to have now from now on, stepping into a new identity. And then we can start working on the goals. Yeah. So I always try to start from, who are you? Have you bought yourself? Is this your stories? Is this your values you're living from? If not, what is your values? You know that I think it's like 2 or 3% of the whole total American population that knows their values. That's pretty scary.
That is. I think most people just live a life watching it pass by, I think.
An autopilot.
So how much more important is it as a business owner to live a life aligned with who you are and who you want to become versus just like, this is a great money-making opportunity and like, this is just what life chose me to do right now?
Great question. So obviously when you've made the money and you have literally everything, and then again, like I said, you come to a point where you go, I've done everything that I've wanted. I've achieved everything that I wanted. Why am I not happy? And that's to answer your question. The reason why you're not happy is because you don't even know why you did it. You don't even know if you did it because you wanted to, based on what values. So instead of looking at what you want to do, so what is the feeling you want to achieve? What's the experience you want to achieve? For who and with who? How do you want to feel? Right. And why? So going back to the values again, like, why am I doing this? Right. And how do I want to feel once I reach this? Yeah. Not what do I want to have or what I want to buy. People don't buy a Ferrari because they want to drive a Ferrari. People buy a Ferrari for how that Ferrari will make you feel. Right. Right. So I think that is the disconnection. Then you reach what you wanted, what you thought you wanted. Right. But do you know why? And do you know what you were looking for in terms of feeling and how that connects with your values and align with you and who you are as a person?
I think that's so incredible. Like most people focus on matter, right? Yeah. And I too was a victim of this. Like I grew up wanting things I couldn't have. And so the first thing you want to do when you set out building a business is buy all the things you didn't have. Once you do that and you realize you're not happy, that's a signal to like check in. And now I have a saying where like I focus on energy, not matter. Yeah. Because in a world where we can design anything the way we want, like people sell crazy things, have crazy business models. So we know anything is possible. Like, why not make anything you want come to life, but in a way that makes you happy?
Exactly. And who you become on the way. Right. It happened to me firsthand. When I had my restaurant, I literally went and bought all the nice bags I wanted. Right. Do you think I have used those bags?
Never.
I don't even have them with me. Right. They're stacked up in a wardrobe at home. I had to learn the hard way that, those bags will not make me happy. Right. Because I did not, those bags I thought I wanted those bags. Yeah. But that was not what I wanted.
And it literally becomes like baggage.
100%. 100%. I'm just wanting someone to come and get them more.
So I just did this actually. Last time I went to the US was October. And for me, something I never had growing up was like nice clothes. Yeah. Like I'd go to, Macy's or wherever you went shopping, and I'd want to buy the Nike or the Ralph Lauren, but it was like $60 for a t-shirt, and my dad would want me to go to Walmart and buy the $10 Fruit of the Loom or whatever. Yeah. And so for me, the second I had money, I started spending majority of it on clothes and nice shoes and designer stuff, and it made me feel more confident at the time. Yeah. So I'm sure I got some value out of it. But when I started traveling the world, I was paying monthly for storage for the first year and a half that I think I paid more in fees to keep my shit there than all the clothes could have probably been worth. And it was also mental baggage of like, I have a storage unit filled to the brim of clothes.
Yeah.
And it was so like weighing me down that the last time I went to the US, I thought like I can sell a lot of these or just do a yard sale or whatever. I had no energy. You know what I did? I packed them in the car. I took them to the thrift store and I just donated them.
Yeah.
And it was so sad to see like bins and bins of clothes that had the tags on them that I'd never worn. And I look at it and I'm like, no, should I keep this? Should I not?
Yeah.
I'm just like, fuck it. Like,
Yeah.
I felt so good afterwards now.
I know.
Because you realize like you're happy regardless of if you have this or not. And if you want it again, you can go get it again.
That's the thing.
Right.
But that's the thing. Many people just realize, I don't want it. And
Yeah.
it's funny you say it because I think you should go through that. Like if you, like you said, I had to go through that.
Right.
I had to realize myself that those bags did not make me happy.
Right.
But you can also take that as an analogy for your thoughts and your beliefs and your stories.
Right.
So once you realize that, you know, like you said, you have this pile full of clothes that you don't need or you want or you thought you needed, but that was actually someone else telling you need and want these because social media or society, you think you need that Nike or the bag. Same with our thoughts and beliefs.
Right.
We store so much of our thoughts and beliefs, like that we take on us, like the layers up in our head, that it's become so crowded. And you don't even know why they're there.
Right.
How did they end up being there? Because someone told you should have a Nike watch or a bag.
Right.
Someone told you should want this and you should have this and you should believe this. All those things is not buying yourself.
Right.
All those things, buying everyone else's stories and everyone else's beliefs of why you should do stuff or have stuff. Once you start, you know, peeling those layers off, and realizing that what do I want? What makes me happy? Maybe it's a bag, maybe not.
Right.
But the question is, does that come from you?
Right. Yeah, because like you said, there's always like two dreams. There's your dream and the outer world's dream.
Yeah.
For yours to grow, the other one has to die. How do you sort through all the like chaos, specifically in the mind when you're coaching your clients, to like unravel the dream or the fog of the world's dream that's being placed on you, to really like bring out what you want to do?
So it's a long process. I mean, I used to say, I tell my clients, like, if it's taken you 30 or 40 years to get here, you know, you've lived this for 30 and 40 years, it will take some time to unravel and unpackage and reprogram. Absolutely not 30 and 40 years.
Right.
But it all starts with having conversations, listen how they talk, listen how they, you know, what are they saying? So when you listen to how people are talking, you will slowly start to pick out, you know, beliefs and stories. You will hear that between the lines.
Right.
Then you start questioning them. You know, where does this come from? Is this true? Is this your belief? Is this your story? And most of the time, it's not.
Right.
So, you know, then because I'm not here to do the work. I'm just here to pull out what's inside of you and help you with the right questions, with the right thought-provoking questions, and also tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear, and question you. So sometimes that can be a pretty hard process, because literally who you think you are and who you think you've been and who you think that what you think you wanted and, you know, what you wanted to go can all of a sudden just crash.
Right.
And then we start, you know, building that.
Which is a risk.
It's a risk, you know.
Yeah.
Many people hold on to that so hard because that's all they know. That's all they lived for. That's all they thought they wanted.
Right.
But the reward after, when you go to bed and all this, you know, all this noise and everything is gone and you just go like, now it's just me, myself, and I.
Right.
That reward, when I had that, I realized I need to help other people have that.
No, speaking of muscles earlier, we were talking about like the muscle to overcome fear. I think there's another muscle to overcome, like a similar fear of risk, because now at this stage in business and life, anytime I feel like I have anxiety to have a convo, pick up someone, fire someone, call this person, say this thing, I've realized like the longer I drag that on, the worse it makes me feel. And usually when I hang on to things like that, it's been because I see this potential result that I hang on to. But now the faster I can solve that problem, nip that thing in the butt, just make that phone call, send that email, fire that person, fire the client, whatever, like start this new thing, have this tough convo. The second I do that as fast as possible, I feel so much relief and mental clarity. And what's weird is a lot of times actually you have that convo, you have no idea what's going to come next, But the fact that you're so excited afterwards and relieved, I think allows space for whatever to come next. And so it's like, yeah, there's an oh shit moment of like, fuck, I just walked out of this business.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm going to do next. But I'm so excited. Like, I don't have to deal with that anymore. And now you just know, like, you're in this uncomfortableness that we talked about earlier, but you're comfortable, you're excited, you're relieved. And that's when you can truly create again, like something new, something aligned.
Yes.
I think that's so important. So what's been one of the coolest things that you've accomplished with some of your clients that have bought themselves?
Oh, some of the cool, literally to see the transformation. You know, they come in with this heaviness, and then, you know, they literally sometimes come in and don't think that we can help,
Right.
or, you know, that they can do something, and they tell me that they're so skeptic and go like, and for example, you know, just the way you can help them change the view and the meaning they give stuff that have literally defined their whole lives. For example, how you look at mistakes.
Right.
Or for people pleasing, or, you know, just the identity shift that occurs, and how you go from having someone in front of you that's like, okay, you know, I've tried everything, I want to do this, but, you know, I don't know how, but let's see, to literally see them step into their full potential, shine, show up with a different energy, a different, you know, approach to life, a different confidence. Everything's changed in their life. They get a job, they get a new relationship or another relationship. They tackle things different. Like, it's like having two different people in front of you. And just, you know, it's hard to pinpoint everything, but just to see that change from, you know, the start to the end. It can also be in one session, you know, the energy shift that happens. Oh my God, that's like the most fulfilling thing ever, because you've known you literally changed someone's life.
Literally.
And the ripple effect that comes with it, because once you change someone, then they go out and help, you know, because whatever they learn, but of course,
they pass it on.
When you know something is good for you and that helped you, you want to pass it on. So then they start helping your surroundings. So I know the ripple effect that comes from helping one person.
Right. That's so incredible.
Yeah.
I think you've been inside of bigger companies, right?
Yeah.
And I think up until recent years, a lot of this mindset, like psychological work, emotional work, whatever, inner work, was seen as like woo-woo, as like not important, as you're emotionally weak, you're mentally weak, especially in the masculine space, where like you're supposed to be a CEO, a strong leader, jacked up on testosterone. But now you're seeing a big change in the corporate world, especially where they're bringing in more of these transformation leaders to work on their like executive leadership team, or work on their, you know, step below that, their sales leaders, their marketing leaders. Why do you think it's so important as a business leader, as an executive, as someone who runs a company, to see the importance of doing this work before they can really build anything big or expect their team to like become leaders?
For me, it's been a lot of with authenticity and alignment. And what I've seen before is that there's so many what you call leaders that has led from a place of what they've been taught to lead. Right. So it's a difference to lead, like learn how to lead yourself from your authentic self, from your own, you know, from buying yourself, or lead from something that you've been like you've been taught in a course or during a training. And when you lead from, like when you work with someone that has learned how to buy themselves and lead from themselves and help others to do that too in a team, contra when you work with someone that has taken all these lessons on and just lead from what they have been taught and not from what they believe, game changer. Right. Because they're not in touch with themselves. They're not, you know, coming from themselves. So at some point that has a limitation, because you know, when you've just learned something and you pass it on because you've learned it, once you go deeper, once you want to develop that, there's no doubt. Yeah. Because you've just literally heard something and passed it on. Yeah. But when you believe in it, when it's part of you, when it's, you know, identity and values, when you pass that on to someone else and you help them do the same things, all of a sudden, you know, there's no limit to what you can develop together as a team. Because you're tapping inside. You're not taking something from external influences and knowledge. You're going from inside and, you know, taking from inside out. When you say lead by like buying yourself first, are you talking more of like leading by doing and just showing your team like you are who you say you are, and you live your life the way you live, and it inspires them to just also fully be themselves? Or what do you mean by? Starting with, are you working in a company where you're aligned with their values? Right. Are your values and this company's values aligned?
Right.
And there's so many that says no to them.
Yeah.
That's the start. So if there's a resistance and friction of who you are and what you believe, and then what you have to do as a leader for a company.
Right.
So that's where it all starts. So
Yeah.
if there's a resistance already there, how are you gonna, with full conviction, go out and lead another team?
Yeah.
If you can't even lead yourself
Right.
to work with this company's values and beliefs.
I've seen this a lot in the sales world.
Yeah.
Where, let's say I'm the CEO, I create certain values. I've seen this in some clients even. They create like company values that they don't even follow. And then they create processes for the sales team.
Yeah.
And then the sales team doesn't follow them. But when you look at the way the leader leads, it's like he doesn't do the things he expects others to do.
Right.
And they don't see that. And it ends up being this leadership, this very low level of leadership where they're almost like yelling at people to do things or micromanaging because it's like, oh, you did this wrong. You did this wrong again.
Yeah.
This is where you're fucking up versus like, I've noticed in my experience, when I just show the team that I do what I say I'm going to do, I think through things a certain way and it gets a certain result. Like they just want to become that person anyways.
Yes.
They say they're going to work out, they go work out.
Yeah.
They say that they're going to create this new sales script to show me their version that works. They go do it and then they bring it to me. Like you become like co-creating leaders.
Exactly.
They want to lead when they see that you're a strong leader.
So can you see the difference in the two teams?
Right.
One working from values and integrity because they really believe in it, and one working from a place where they've just, it's a scarcity and they've, been told to do it and they don't even know why they do it. And there's this resistance and disconnection.
Yeah.
I mean,
one is like draining and one feels effortless and exciting.
Yeah.
I had a random story. I had a friend who'd exited his company for like over $1 billion. He started adopting kids. And when he adopted a kid, he told me like, you know what I'm going to do this time around that I wish I did with my kids? He's like, I'm going to run an experiment where I don't tell this kid anything. Like, I don't tell them how they should live their life. I don't tell them how to do things properly. He's like, I'm just going to live my life. And the guy's like an extraordinary man, very aligned, very honest, like treats people with crazy respect. And when I heard him say that, I just pictured in my head, I'm like, this is going to fucking work. Like, I've never heard someone say that, but I'm like, this actually works. Because all the kid needs to see is that their dad wakes up, he's a badass, he goes to the gym, he eats healthy, he treats his kids and his wife with respect, he treats everyone else with respect, he listens well. And like the kid can't help but not become that person.
He's going to adopt the actions.
Right.
Yes.
And like that's actually leadership, like pure leadership. You almost don't have to say much at all.
100%.
Like you just do.
Yeah. And that just shows the power of your environment, which has been huge in my life. Who you're surrounding yourself with and how they're behaving and thinking and doing and acting.
I think Hermosi says this a lot. And a lot of people nowadays like think a lot about who they want to become. And they do a lot of these like manifestation practices of like, I'm becoming this person and I want to become this person and here's what that person looks like. And I think there's a time and a place for that. But he says like, you learn by doing things and you are who you are based on the things that you do, not what you say you're going to do or you plan. And so it's like, if you eliminate like becoming and you make learning as doing and becoming as doing, like who you are is just doing. And I've recently like really took this on as the fastest way to change who I am is not like think a lot about what that person is, but just actually do what they would do.
Do the actions.
Like the shorter that I can condense the time between idea and action, the faster I'm going to change myself.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, that's the chain because you have it like action, habits, beliefs, stories, and identity.
Right.
So if you start by, if you do all those things, at one point that will become part of your identity. So it will become your being.
Right. And a lot of, would you say like when you're starting out, I think a lot of people have an identity conflict because they don't have a lot of skills.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of experience. They want to become like this billionaire without knowing what it takes. What would your advice be to that person who's getting started?
Literally take one step at a time. Look what, So you want to become this billionaire. What does this billionaire do? How do they talk? What do they read? And what do they know? Do they have an education? Literally study them. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So study them, how they think, what they say, what they believe, what they read, who they spend time with. all of those things, identify those character traits that you
Right.
want, and then, start challenging yourself to put that into your life. So take an action from that place.
Yeah.
So, for example, it's not about working out. It's about stepping into an identity of a person that works out.
Right.
Because the action, it takes willpower to take action. And
Right.
at some point, that willpower can fade or something can happen. But if you already say, I'm a person that works out,
Right.
then that's your being.
Right.
That's who you are.
Right.
You don't need willpower to do something that you
Right.
already are. 95% comes from what we do is our subconscious. So if you already say, this is who I want to be, instead of this is what I need to do or should do,
Right.
two different ways of doing things.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And a lot of people just don't zoom out over a long enough time and give themselves credit for like,
Yeah.
oh, I am becoming that person now.
Yeah.
Like I was fat and I actually was like obese at one point and I always wanted to be in shape.
Yeah.
A lot of people where they quit is they go to the gym for a few months, they don't see progress and they say, oh, I'm not that person yet.
Yeah.
But they don't see like, oh, I'm in the process of becoming him now and I keep going and I get there.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, for me, the biggest thing is the doing, actually. So you study who you want to become and you know the actions and then it's just doing. And I think clarification in your identity comes through doing the reps.
100%.
Like, I didn't think that I'd be traveling the world,
Yeah.
filming a podcast right now at 22 in a different country.
Yeah.
But the only way I realized that is just by doing things that led me to the next and the next.
Because you are a person that films podcasts in another country.
Right.
Period.
Exactly.
It's like you're a healthy person. What does a healthy person do? So once you know the identity you want to have, then you start asking yourself, what does a person who wants to film podcasts do?
Right.
And then you have this list of these things. So he goes to networking events, talks to people. He invites them to film a podcast.
Right.
He performs the podcast. He cuts them. He promotes them. So literally, who you want to be, what does that person do, and then just start having a 5-step or 10-step action
This
plan.
is a prime example. And the last part of it, like we said, is overcoming the initial inertia.
Yeah.
Because I've had the vision of having a podcast for years.
Mm.
I had so many beliefs of why I couldn't get started or it needed to be a way or I needed to have certain equipment. And it wasn't until I was like, all of it exists.
Yeah.
Like I could become that person now. So I just need to start doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people like plan.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they never start the doing
Yeah.
and they jump to the next idea.
And do you really have to have the perfect equipment? Do you really have to have the best person on your podcast
Right.
in the start? Like, no.
Right.
This is my win. Is that your story? And is that true?
Right. It's not. And I think if you have beliefs that don't serve you, like
Yeah.
there's no reason to carry them with you.
No.
So, well, let's recap this then. If you were to summarize everything we just spoken to, the 3 most important points to buy yourself back, what would you wrap those up with?
Absolutely. Start with asking yourself, what am I doing today? Are these my reality, and who do I want to be?
Right.
So, what you're doing, is this true? What do I want to do? And then just go do it. And it is pretty hard to, you can't tickle yourself.
Right.
So, I've done a lot of work with mentors and coaches, and, I would absolutely recommend if you're keen on doing the work, have someone that, does it
Right.
with you, because at the end of the day, 2 brains are better than one. And,
Right.
Again, you can't tickle yourself.
Yeah.
So I would, and realize that you don't have to, like, your past doesn't define who you are today.
Right.
So whatever you want to do from now going forward, you can do it. But you just
Right.
you need to know what it is, and you need to know that it's
Yeah.
possible,
Right.
and then go from there.
So a lot of high achievers listening to this, I would ask them to pause the show,
Yes.
ask themselves, like, what am I really doing in my business? And does this make me happy?
Yes.
Start there.
And does it resonate with me and my values and who I want to be and how I want to live my life?
100%. I
Yeah.
think that's so awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I hope you guys listening got a ton of value out of this as well. And if you're ever feeling like you're at a place in life where you're not happy or excited and you want to buy yourself back, how do they get a contact with you? Where do they find you? Where can they learn more?
So you can go to my LinkedIn, Adele Kamel-Witley. I'm sure you will.
It will be
Post
linked
the name?
somewhere here.
Yes, and I'll give you all the information. You can link them, but find me on LinkedIn, Adele Kamel-Witley.
Awesome.
I'm there every day, so just send me an email.
Cool. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for sharing so much information with the audience and appreciate you.
Thank you for
Till
doing
next
this.
time, guys, See you later, and we'll catch you on the next episode of The Arena.